Okay, thank you. Technical challenge.
Figured it out already.
Good afternoon. Let's call the meeting to order. Today is Wednesday. We're here for a special fire assessment meeting. The agenda item is the funding methodology. I want to just take a brief second. And the purpose of the meeting isn't whether or not we're going to have a fire department or not. It's how we're going to fund it. That we already have we've made that decision. Now comes the sort of trying to come together on how best to raise the funds for the budget. And so any of your comments, if you would just simply hold them to the methodology and the assessment process. That's the purpose of tonight's meeting. Everyone knows that we did ask Bay County to join in with them. We were rejected. Based on what I thought was some pretty credible information. I'm assuming that all of you are aware of that. If not, we could relive that. But I think it's commonly known that they're just, we had the potential to cause them a problem in terms of their rating, and their requirements that for us would just be astronomical in order to be what they think they need to have for us to be a 3. Which is what they have. So, with that said, we will turn this over. Is there a method to this madness tonight, Adrian? Or is it just up to the table to open the floor? To open the discussion? Okay, that's fine. The methods that we were given, or not given, but that we chose last time was based on a study that was performed by an independent company. And I think everyone knows how that went. Could you, it was 300 and, what is the, just for my record, what we're looking at now is $380 a residential house?
$356 a residential house, $54 a vacant lot, and 50 cents a square foot.
Is that at 100%?
Yep.
Okay, 354?
356.
356, I mean, okay. And 50?
356. And 50 cents commercial with a cap of $4,081.70,
Right.
and 54 vacant lot.
Okay. That's what we did, that you got in the mail several months ago. That's what based on what that study did. We're now facing raising funds. We know that we're going to be responsible for our own fire department. So now what's the most equitable way to raise money, assess ourselves, and find a way to fund roughly $800,000 fire department? I have been one of those that I'm of a more simple mind than this complicated process we went through last time. I presented some information to the council that, at least to me, is a more fair and equitable way to do it. To me, it is up to this group to decide. I'm comfortable that that you have equal service and equal pay. That's we're all going to get the same service, no matter the circumstances. We're going to get the same fireman, the same truck, the same equipment. I also presented another plan that levies fees based on categories of homesteaded, non-homesteaded, and commercial properties. So I'll just open the floor to the council. We all know the way we did it last time, or the way we arrived at the one we did when we mailed it out. Now, just clarification to this, whatever form we come up with, we're doing this so it will be part of your tax bill. It won't be in the form of an ad valorem tax, but it will be an assessment on your tax bill. just for clarification. It will not be an ad valorem millage rate. It will be a separate assessment. All right, floor's open for whoever wants to make a suggestion or give some input about what they think is a good way to do this.
Well, you gave two options, and
did.
maybe if you go over the first option, and we can talk
All right,
about it, and
I'll-
then maybe the second option, we can talk about.
All right, I'll do that.
Since,
Because we all know what the
right, since
one
you
that we
gave it
used
to us.
before.
Right,
My first option, my comment was that I don't find any logical argument against assessing equal service for equal pay. To me, that's the simplest, fairest, equitable means of raising funds. And my methodology for that was that you simply take the total budget, which in this case is $788,126, and you subtract the unincorporated monies that we receive from, or the monies received from Bay County for the unincorporated areas of our city. Right now, that's at $15,000. So you would subtract that. You would subtract the vacant lot coverage, which is, there's 557 vacant lots at 55, I thought it was $55, but that's insignificant if I'm off there that little bit, which is $30,635. You subtract those two from the 788, which is our budgeted number, and then you take the total residential and commercial properties and you divide that into the remaining budget needed, which in this case works out to $380 per parcel.
so,
Now, what you-
what's unincorporated? Which ones are unincorporated? St., called
the
Catholic
church property,
Right, the
who
Catholic
else?
Church.
You have to tell me
I can
that.
answer
I
that.
don't know.
Well, Sugar Sands will be unincorporated.
Right.
Everything around to the north is unincorporated, all the way up to the West Bay, or not West Bay.
For structures, it's two structures.
Yeah.
HDTV house,
Mhm.
the Harmon property, and, I'm sorry, those are the residents, and then the church. So there's only 3 buildings
Okay.
that we protect, which is what taxes us most, more than land we've already discussed.
And Bay County pays us to take care of
And
those.
everything this way to
Right.
Tyndall.
Okay,
And I wrote here that you see, I said expected to increase. I think from the county commission meeting, at least Commissioner Carroll indicated that he thought there was room for the county to increase their participation money. There's no amount of money, but we know we're gonna get 15, and that's all the
Okay,
number I had to work with. Certainly if Sugar Sands is developed, we know that that will create a significant income. All of that would be deducted from what we as our citizens would have to pay. But right now, the 15,000 is the only number that I consider to be usable.
so then your option one is $380 per resident, per El Governor, per Driftwood, and any other commercial.
Per parcel.
Everybody, whatever
It
parcel
says
it is,
residential and
no matter
commercial.
what size.
Right, doesn't matter. Well, I mean,
So
the
El
size
Governor
doesn't.
would pay $380.
Everybody
Driftwood would pay
pays $380. Everybody.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a question.
Sure.
On the last time, and I'm looking after what I live in, and probably several, we got 53 businesses I'd like to represent. If this is true, the duplexes here, I paid for 2 residents, 1,250 square feet. So, under this proposal, is it true that I would be paying for 2 times 380? Then,
Yeah, well, you're doing that now.
sir,
You're doing that now under the system
Yeah.
that we adopted.
that's right. Now, and I didn't mind that, that's fine. What I don't like is that I'm paying $760 under one roof, and the El Governor is paying $380. And you got condominiums are paying, you figure theirs up 16,000 for less rooms than at the El Governor. And I just, when we talk about being fair, then I want to be included in the fairness of it.
Well,
And before we leave, I'd like an answer to that, if we're gonna handle that or not. Because this is what, when we start fooling with it, it's kinda like.
well, you know, that's a good question. And I'm sitting here, when I talk to the property appraiser's office, when they give me parcels, well, if a duplex, if it's,
Quad of deep, yeah.
is it two parcels or one? It has to be two parcels. That's right, it does.
But if we're molding this thing, if we're molding it the way we want it, then I want you to mold it into one.
So, and so what you're saying, Rex, is that El Governor would be paying $380.
And I'm
Any
paying-
condominium group building would be paying $380.
Every duplex, every triplex.
And so then, and you're
And we,
paying,
and what I'm getting at is, when we wanna be fair, equal service, then let's be fair.
I think there is. I did a lot of look into it. I'd be happy to say what I ran into it, and I think there is fairness in it. Because I know when I looked at one, there's no fairness in taxes anyway, wherever you look at it, or equality. But I think we do, pardon me, I think we do have to be as fair as possible as we can make it for a couple of reasons. One, we have to be fair as we can, but we have to be open in how we do it and equal in how we do it. I think the other thing that we haven't talked about, we have to be able to justify what we do, because if something happens, it's a potential, more especially with this, if we end up in a court, that we could lose an income for our fire department, cost more for our citizens. We wouldn't look too good as a group up here. Citizens would be mad at us. The businesses would be mad. What I did was, and I agree with the mayor that it's a lot simpler looking at it this way than it was on the old method we did last time. But I looked around at a lot of cities across the state, and I found two methods that were pretty well being done. One of them was tax value, looking at it, and another one was actually improvement value. The idea behind the improvement value was land doesn't burn, the buildings burn. I, kind of like the mayor did on his, I took a look at it by our number of lots, the total amount. Now, one of the things I noticed these other cities do, they kind of do a two-tier thing. They do like the $55 that we do for our vacant lot, they charged for the lot all the way across. Everyone paid a lot fee. That way, we didn't have, or they didn't have people who had a vacant lot saying, why didn't I be in? I'm paying the same lot fee. And then they had an assessment. But I looked at it from a tax value. I tried to do it here, came up with basically using $55 as a lot value. Looked at 2.75 as a kind of a millage type thought, and looking at the overall value. Used my home as a residence. It was about $414 at that one. I took a look then at a typical restaurant, and they were running about 2.9% more than my house value was, than I paid. A major business was running about 3.4% more, and a major motel in the city was about 43%. If I looked at it as an improvement value, and in our assessments, it does give a value for homes and buildings and so forth, and then miscellaneous, which could be another small building on the outside, not a livable building, could be your swimming pool. And I looked at it from that standpoint. Mine came out with the same numbers, 427 instead of 414. That restaurant, though, actually was paying only 8.2% of what my house was. The major business actually was 1.909% more, and the motel was about 19%, almost 20% more than what I had to pay. So it ranged them up, in essence, more fairly. Those that had larger structures paid more, and it also ended up with our businesses who have a little bit more of a risk if there's a fire than we do, because the number of people and so forth there. And in one of the things that I said I wanted to do was make sure that we could justify it, and if it went to court, you can with the improvement value. Cape Coral, back about 2014, went to this method, and they took it to the Supreme Court of Florida. Supreme Court of Florida came back and said, improvement value is okay. It's justifiable because you're charging on what you could lose in the fire. For you, I'm not sure, how that would work. You'd have to figure out, but it does make it for those that have smaller properties pay less for each of those partials. As the property size goes up and more could be lost in fire, they pay more.
You'd have to put that on paper.
Be happy to. I've got it. And I'd be happy to. Have no problems with that.
Well,
You're talking about legal and lawsuits and all that. This situation that we paid for a specialist to come in and help us with this, that was one of her strong points, is that it's been court tested and approved. Now, if we come up with something else that's brand new, what's the possibility of us winding up in a lawsuit? And then we have to go through the methodology to determine is it legal or not legal. And so consequently, I'm not opposed to changing our ideas at all, but I would sure like to have, we just can't get along without lawyers, it seems like. I would sure like to have somebody that knows something about this type of business, say whatever we come up with tonight, if we come up with something, that he thinks it'll stand up.
That's the reason I liked the property value that was used in Cape Coral, because it had been tested by.
I don't know if I don't know that there's any real fair way to do this.
There never is.
There is two, what he's talking about is the availability method. That was the other option, is the availability method and the historic demand method. The reason that we did the historic demand is because we had call data. Availability is usually for those that don't have good call data to use. They don't have good call data to use,
And we did.
and we did, so that's why they went this direction. It doesn't mean we couldn't go the other way. They're both court tested.
You couldn't do the availability based on volunteers. It was too hard to figure out how much they were responding and not, because a volunteer, is he always on the clock or is he never on the clock? It was debatable. That's what she said.
But now with the full-timers, we could be able to do that, okay?
Just a minute,
So-
we'll get to.
So your breakdown is residential by size?
No.
By
Breakdown.
size?
No,
By size,
No, it's all partials,
yeah.
and it's based upon what is considered in our tax records as the cost of the building, which is never
Right.
correct. We know that, but it's best we have.
Okay.
So if it says in my case, I have my tax record, it says my house valuation this year is $139,000, and the miscellaneous value associated with the house, I'm not sure what that really is for me. I looked another place up that had a pool and so forth, and it was a lot larger, it was like 820. Well, it said that I had 139,000, roughly 140, I round for examples, at 100, that was available in buildings to be looked at, which would burn. I had figured up, much like Al had, how much of a rate it would cost to meet our needs for the fire department, over and above the $55 charge just for land that I put across all parcels. It was 2.36, trying to get as close as I could to what today was. So that gave me, at the 2.36 times 140,000, I had about $330, adding the $55. If it was close enough to what I'm looking at realistic today, I would pay $385,000 for my property. $385, not $1,000.
So
I mean,
would
why
that,
wouldn't you do that? Just go ahead and do it through property taxes and the general fund. I mean, why
Because
wouldn't
the
you do
one,
that?
only reason I would look at it, I agree, that's total taxes. That includes your land. One of the reasons that evidently the court, Supreme Court, said that this type of method was okay, was it was on the property that's on that land that would be destroyed with fire, and these are a assessment for fire. The land doesn't go away.
Let me take a stab at explaining this.
Please,
scenario.
I'm doing terribly.
No, it's okay.
you're fine.
So let's assume $55 is vacant land, like this one, just $55. So everybody pays $55 per parcel. And then from there, you figure out the EBU, which is the equivalent benefit unit, which is the value of the structures, not the land. You take the land value out, you figure out the total value of the city of structure, divide it out by what that comes to per EBU, and you go from there. So an EBU, for example, is $165,000, 712 home, $165,712 home, round down to 165. You divide it by 5,000, you get 33 EBUs. You get the total EBUs in your city, divide the total amount of money you need after the 55 per lot is taken out, and divide it by the number of EBUs to get a rate. The example you're using, the rate was $1.46 per EBU. So 165 divided by 5,000 is 33 EBUs, which comes to $1.46 plus, or times that 33 for 48.18 plus $55. That's how that formula
Okay.
works backwards.
So,
That's the legal way of doing it, all right.
so would that help the duplexes? Because it's under one roof.
It should, because it's the value of the structure.
Yeah.
But this is a whole new study.
And who, if we go this route, whose responsibility would it be to figure all this out? Would Bay County do this for us?
No, probably not.
Or,
Well,
or, I mean, would they plug in the numbers for us? Or is that something that would be on your plate to figure it out?
I would think that we could get what I'm talking about from the database of Bay County, because on my tax
Right.
sheet, it tells me
Says
what
that.
my building's worth,
Yeah.
it tells me what my miscellaneous property is worth.
Do you insure it for that?
No.
You
but
insure
we're-
it for much more than that?
Sure. There is, again, nothing we can look at that's going to ever be exact. The thing is, if we use something like this for this or for total tax value, it is equal across the board, not just with me, but each of us out here, because it's what the county would assess our value is, not what Adrian would assess it or what a third party assesses. We can bitch and moan like heck with our Bay County people, easier than I can a third party people, because none of them are going to listen to us anyway. But it seems to be more equal, because I'm not getting looked at really any differently than Al is, than you are.
Well, I've talked to a few people that live here in the city, and especially on the beach, and some of their homes are quite a bit different as far as the tax level. I mean, a lot different. And so some of these people are not getting treated fairly. If the person next door, their place is valued at $300,000-400,000 more than their place is, and I've heard of the very same thing happening.
Sure. And it
So-
does, that's our tax laws.
So that's not fair to some of these people sitting out here.
Didn't say it's necessarily fair, I'm saying it's the fairest method.
Well, yeah,
I
I
can
don't,
see.
yeah, okay.
Okay, any other comments? I saw some hands, we'll take some, yeah, just come up to, oh, no, just stand at your chair, that's fine. Tell us who you are.
My name's Bob Volk, I'm a property owner here. I just want to back up 1 second, trying to get this clear in my mind. You got a budget here of $788,126, and that's what going to fund one firehouse, is that what we're talking about? One? Currently, we have that property that's already here. Are we getting that from the county, are they
No.
donating something?
No, they're donating nothing, no, they're they're donating that.
Okay, so we have a firehouse, we have equipment, and your anticipation is it's 788, 126. Now, is that gonna be yearly, or is this, we're starting out now, and this is gonna taper a little bit after we get?
But we'll take for some, because we've got equipment
Okay.
retirement in there.
I noticed on my tax bill that I'm actually paying a fire thing for Bay County. Now, does that mean that's going away?
Where's he living?
What's your address?
3300 Highway 98?
There shouldn't be a
No.
Bay County fire tax on there.
Okay. So then I shouldn't expect anything for Bay County, because you said you
You
approached
pay, you
them.
pay Bay County taxes.
Right, and I got that. It actually went down, by the way.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. So anyway, we're back to this number, and you say it's gonna be 788, 126 a year, even though we already have equipment, so that's gonna involve what, your staffing in the building and operational fees.
There you go.
And what, is there an insurance policy behind all this?
Trucks.
If you do get sued?
Well, we have a general liability policy.
Okay, so then that's gonna cover that part of the liability issue. So we're at 788 a year. So with that in mind, you're talking about how to fund this. I mean, you make a good point. A man that owns a 2-bedroom condo should not be looking at the fees that you're paying at the government. I mean, it's also back to that assumption of risk. To have 30 or 40 units in a row, you can't expect them to pay the same price as what somebody's paying with 2 units. Because it's back to the risk factor here. So I'm not saying they should pay $380 or whatever it is a unit over there, but we shouldn't put our policy around what the government does. In other words, what's fair may be half that per unit. Because in the end, small business, in most of these situations, is not gonna pay for that anyway. They're gonna operate at their margin, and whatever they have to do to bump the margin up based on increased expenses is what happens in the end with that. So
Wouldn't that hold true if this duplex was being rented?
No, I'm saying, so back to that.
Well, I don't know if it is or not, but I'm saying, wouldn't that apply?
That's what I'm saying, and then he's gonna re-rent his property at a future date for a different price based on what happens in our assessments today. But again, a man that owns 2 units should, for those two, you shouldn't allow El Governor to have 40 units and pay, whatever. There should be some kind of rate after you own so many units. In my opinion, and I'm not a unit owner here, I don't have a dog in the fight, but to tell me that they're gonna pay a 1-lot fee at El Governor versus a duplex that's gonna pay 2, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I did wanna clear that up, that we already own this equipment, we have a firehouse.
Right.
And this is an annual budget that you're expecting. to fund.
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? I saw a couple hands. Yes, sir.
Chuck,
Chuck,
You raised your hand, sir.
you're up, Chuck.
you're up, Chuck.
Not
Up, Chuck.
The city has operated the fire department ever since there was a fire department in the 60s. Now, why can't we just continue to operate a fire department as one of the city functions instead of making special assessments for this or that and the other? We have road department, it's part of it, with city hall and so forth. Why can't, as we have done since the 1960s, just continued to operate the fire department as a city function instead of all of this special assessment,
It is a city
everything. In other words, operate it under city ad valorem tax assessment. Very simple. Thank you.
Next question. Anybody else got a, please?
My name's George Gill. I live at 124th Street. And I don't really know why we're here. 4 months ago, we had a workshop, and a week later, we had a council meeting, and a vote was taken on a special assessment fee. And it was my understanding, even though I fought terribly hard against it, and I provided our mayor with what at that time I called a manifesto of 8 pages full of facts and figures that I had researched. I encouraged all of you to get a copy of that from the mayor. In addition, in preparation to the actual meeting and vote, I hand-delivered each of you council members a 3-page talking points paper with facts and figures that I had gathered from over 17 fire departments locally locally within a 100-mile radius, it said that this was a bad idea, that this wouldn't work. This thing was all being driven by Chicken Little, the ISO score going from a 5 or a 6 to a 10. We had to do something. And I thought there were better ways to do it. And I encouraged you to take your time and to research it a little bit more. And do your homework. Talk to some of the same firefighters that I talked to, some of the same hands-on, frontline, now chiefs and deputy chiefs that said, don't care how much money you draw in on this special assessment fee, you're not going to be able to pay for what it's going to cost to get a rating of a 4 or a 5 or a 6. There were other factors that were involved in all of this, and I presented that to you.
George, excuse me, but I gotta go back to what I said when I started.
Mr. Mayor, it ties in.
I respect
It-
your opinion, but that decision.
All right, let me back up then. I paid 2 times $281. I was probably the first one to pay after 4 of you voted yes, 1 dissenting vote. So it passed. And I reluctantly wrote my check out, and that was to pay for 6 certified firefighters, 1 fire engine, and renovations to a station, and that was going to solve our problem. Our problem was over. Now, that was recurring. Every year we were going to pay that amount. Now, if I'm hearing you right, the $281 that I pay times 2 has now gone up to $381.
It hasn't gone up. It was a prorated 79% at 281. It's always been 356.
All right, and then I heard on the news, apparently something's wrong. Apparently that's not covering everything, Adrian, because
Yes, it is, yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, why'd we go to Panama City then and say, please help us, please take us over?
Well, we didn't do that. We didn't go say, please help us. The information that this table got was that there was an opportunity I can only speak for me, but I don't think this council ever talked to anyone in Panama City. It was done through the fire chief and through the staff that they courted, that there was a mutual agreement in
There was a possibility.
There was talk that, hey, give us a proposal. We might want to look at you, and we could join and be part of the county MSTU program. So we said, look, let's try that.
Okay,
It didn't
all
work.
right,
It didn't
can I
work.
ask a question then? If the $856,000 or whatever that we expected to generate back in February when the vote was cast, if that was going to solve our problem, I'm just asking for clarification. Why was there any discussion from anybody, Chief Simmons or Mr. Wells or anybody, to involve Panama City Fire Department?
The county fire.
The county, why?
Well,
If our problem was solved.
Please, you have to, I want to be.
I'm listening.
This is something that we got to be respectful about.
Well, I'm doing my,
So, okay, good, and I am too. It came to us that they have a bigger fire system. They have a 3 rating. They have multiple trucks, people to draw on. It came to us meaning this front table, that hey, they may be interested at a 1.38 millage rate, which is the same, what they charge their unincorporated areas of Bay County, and that we could become part of that MSTU fire district. Okay? It came to us. I didn't go seek it. I didn't even know it was available.
We wanted to save money and become part of a larger pool. We thought they could possibly save the residents
that would
money.
save us money.
Save us money.
We thought it could.
So we did that. I wrote them a letter and said, hey, here,
And that was all after the February vote.
absolutely.
Sure.
All
And
after, it just came,
It was the bottom of the ninth with 2 out.
Well, I tried last June and then it came back up again.
So
Okay.
we sent them the letter.
but,
That didn't
all
work.
right, but when the vote was cast, did I misunderstand Chief Simmons and the council members saying, give me 6 certified firefighters, state certified, give me a new fire truck and a new department, and our rating's gonna go down to a 4 or 5 or 6? Did I misunderstand
No,
that?
you did not. You did not.
And would not that then keep all of our homeowners' insurance at status quo? Hey, might even drop some.
And that's already done. We are a 6 ever since we passed this assessment, ISO has now said we will be a 6, but we need to maintain it now.
When was the assessment?
The assessment was.
Yeah, I mean, when I was here, you said the assessment may not be for another 5 years.
You
This was
mean
back in February.
ISO?
We had 1 year to fix it by September 11th, and we
Okay,
have.
so you've had on-site surveyors back here, and they've
They've ready-
checked water pressure, new fires.
George, let me tell you, we submitted a plan to ISO.
I understand.
That was their suggestion. Give us something in writing of what you're gonna do. We did that.
Right.
Chief Simmons did that. They accepted our working plan, even though it was in progress. But if we met those things that were in our plan, that we would be a 5 or 6. And we've been told, and we have done that. We've fulfilled our obligation. We fixed the firehouse, we've hired firefighters, we've ordered a truck. We have done the things that we said that we were gonna do. ISO has come back and said, you are on your own task.
Right.
This is what you're gonna get.
Right, and that's the message, well, the
So-
message was a little bit more cloudy than that at the end of the meeting. It was, if we do all these things, we should, but no guarantees.
That is correct.
No,
Mr.
now the
Mayor.
clouds have cleared.
Mr. May I interject?
Yeah, you do
Tell-
anything.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons we're here, because that was one of the main questions, why are we here, is after that, we got everything in place, we had a lot of our citizens, if I can speak, who felt that the methodology that was used at that time was not fair and equal across the board, and we had some comments from our commercial citizens who felt they were not treated properly. We heard, I think we're here to say, okay, if the methodology wasn't correct, is there something better that's fair and equal? At least that's one of the reasons I'm sitting here, because I want to be
That's
fair
right.
and
That's
equal.
what we're doing. We're trying to do it, we're trying to raise funds so that everybody, I hate to use the word, we're gonna try to please everybody.
Good luck.
But we're gonna do the best we can. We're coming up with a system. I've heard Chief Simmons, he said it several times. He's done what he was hired to do. He's looking for 788, 126. That's what he's looking for.
To maintain what he's
To
done.
maintain, that's right. I mean, that's, how we decide that he gets that money to do his job is why we're here.
I think it would have been a great idea, it's too late now, maybe I shouldn't even bring it up, is to have just dropped everything. Let everybody function at a level 10 of ISO and see what would happen with your insurance. If it didn't go up enough, if it didn't go up $350, or if it went up $850, it might make it a little easier to swallow what we're trying to talk about assessments. I don't know. I finally had to talk, and I mentioned this before, to the regional people of my insurance company, and it was gonna go up about $300. Minimum. Just the fire part, not everything else, just the fire part. Well, in talking to Adrian, well, we can't do that because ISO does a routine follow-up, what do you call it, assessment or audit about every 4 to 5 years. Well, we've been stuck at a category 10 for 4 or 5 more years, whether we liked it or not. We couldn't try to do anything different. Is that not right?
Yeah, we had a probation of 1 year to fix it.
So we had a
If we did.
probationary period of 1 year to do this. So that's why we're trying, and I've talked to 3 business people that have no idea what their insurance, fire insurance would be at a category 10 ISO rating. Have no idea. But complaining about what the assessment's going to be. And I can understand, 1 year you have nothing, and the next year all of a sudden you've got a $3,000 or $4,000 assessment. But is that worth it to them? Now, we've already gotten past this, so that's just my way of thinking to get to where we are now. I don't like it any more than a lot of you all like it. And I don't like the fact, I love the L governor, but I just can't see them paying the same thing that he's paying. I can't see them paying the same thing that I'm paying. It just doesn't float with me. Now, all of you people sitting out here came for a reason. Give us your input. Let us hear what you've got to say.
Go ahead.
Lisa Logan. Adrian, is it correct that we have to look at this assessment each year? Is an annual thing?
Correct. It's the growth of the city is going to change. Structures are going to get built. We could annex. I mean, there's a lot of things that can come into
Okay,
this.
so we have to look at the assessment each year.
We have to adopt a roll every year. Yep.
Yes. So it might be helpful for people to understand that this is not just a fee that we're coming up with now or came up with a few months ago, and that's it. It has to be brought up each year around budget time, and this very first year, it was not 100% of the fee that was actually figured. It was 76, 79%. That is why the bills were what they were. So that was because we're looking at the fiscal year, and we were already almost halfway through the fiscal year. So now it's time to look at it again. It will be the entire fiscal year, which will be the 100% assessment, and then next July, we get to do it all over again. That's what people have some confusion about.
Correct.
Is it possible over the long haul, with us accepting more people between here and Tyndall, that this, for the people in Mexico Beach, could go down?
Yes.
A matter of fact, it's more probable that it will go down.
As long as we get annexed where it's over 5 miles from the fire station, and then you would have to charge them less because they would get a worse rate, but that would take a lot because we're only 3.5 miles now and we're pretty centrally located. So that's correct, as long as we don't go too far away.
Tell you what I'm gonna do, okay. Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna finish my presentation and I can be quiet. Go ahead.
Just a second.
You can find.
The 1.38 meals that was mentioned before, is taking the full assessment for all the property owners and everything in Mexico Beach, and all the governor. What if you did a levy of like two meals? And then, that would make it equitable for everybody, whether the property owner pay 2 meals, the governor would pay 2 meals. Would that work, is that legal?
Oh, yeah, we could do the millage rate. We had decided that was not, this table had said that a millage assessment was not, there was not we didn't approve of that.
I understand, but what Bill was talking about, he said his property was at 2 point something million.
Yeah, but he wasn't suggesting that we do a millage.
No.
That's what he said, but just across the board, 2 meals, let's say people in City Grove paying 1.38, people up in Fountain or whatever paying 1.38, the people in, Arlington are paying 1.38 meals, and I know we like to rent heavy stepchild out here, so it would cost a whole lot more for them to cross Tyndall to get to us. But the only thing is, if you put a levy of, let's say, 2 meals, wouldn't that give you more than what you're asking for here if every property owner paid 2 meals?
I think Adrian's got the number.
Adrian, you're right.
It
This
would,
one.
when I figured this out, last numbers, I haven't figured it out with the new numbers, it was 2.25 mils it would take for the city to maintain the same amount of money, but it couldn't be separate. It would have to be with the general levy, so we'd have to take the 5.351 mils we charge now, plus the 225, which would have made it 7 something. And it's not guaranteed for the department. That could be borrowed and taken elsewhere throughout time, at the discretion of the board, whoever the board may be at that time.
Well, with the,
The city coffers, it's the city coffers. And
Correct.
You said, hey, we can't touch this amount of money. There's $1 million sitting out there that can't be touched anyway. So, why, you can separate that, that's easy.
well, to answer his question, 2%.
2.25.
What that would generate,
2.25 would generate the money we need,
2.25.
roughly. 1.38 generates 550,000. That's the number the county was talking to us with, was 1.38, 550.
Now you can do it separate because there's just different rules for counties and cities. So if we can do it separate, it would be ideal, but we can't because we're a city and the rules just don't allow it.
What I'm saying
Okay.
is just make it more equitable. for
Yes, Greg.
property
Well,
owners.
I'm just saying that, we had discussed that, and there was consensus was that we were not in favor of a millage assessment, where it's part of your millage rate. Yes, Fred?
Could it be done separate from the millage rate? That's my question.
No.
What is our total property tax base?
Your
Is there a percentage of that that will get us to our number where, when I see my property taxes, and I'm all for what you're saying about being fair, that I'm gonna get the same fire department as the guy next door. I do question a little bit about the vacant lots, because I've got vacant lots beside my building. I'm paying 4 times for one building, and I'm paying one for another building, but if that lot catches on fire and burns my buildings down, he can pay $55, and I pay a lot more. But to me, to be fair and to be equal, and really for me, easier for me to swallow would be, you know, do we need 5% added to our property tax as a line item to take care, to reach us to the point? Then, like the guy that's got the lot, if he gets a property tax bill and the fire assessment is 2% of his $225,000 lot, he's not gonna really look at it that hard. Or he's gonna look at it harder than it would be if it's $55, but I'm gonna look at it like he's getting treated the same as I'm getting treated, because I'm getting treated for 2% of my property.
I got you.
And it's a situation where I've got one property, got 1 unit, and the other one's got 4 units, it's an old house that's been divided up into 4 units, and I'm paying 4 times, it's kind of like the duplex situation. You know, there's not a whole lot of square footage difference, it's all under the same roof. And so to me, if I got a bill and it said, okay, Fred, you gotta pay 5% more based on your property tax. You know, 5% increase each year, or 5%, or 2%, 3%, whatever we come, that's the reason I'm asking, what's the total property tax base we have in this county? Because you have some lots that are worth a lot more, that they're paying more property tax than some on that are further back and they're not paying. So that kind of gets it all an equal plane, though. I don't look at it like I've got to pay a lot more than the guy next door to me. You know, he's paying 2%, I'm paying 2%, or 3%, or whatever it works out to be. Is there another that will work in that case?
Go ahead.
It would be a 42% tax increase to fund it. Our taxable value of the
42%.
our taxable value as a city is $419,438,000.
Does that help? Yes, ma'am.
I have a problem with the assessment that you're going to give the governor. You mean to tell me that their fire is going to be easier to fight than on my one-story house? 4 or 5
First of all,
stories.
nobody's giving the governor, I mean, the governor, there's,
Done
there's,
it yet.
we act like the there's only one L governor in our city. There's a lot of other businesses in town. that,
Yeah, but
you know,
the L
but
governor-
the L governor's tax bill was $4,000. Okay?
Well, my.
And yours was $356.
Non-homestead taxes are half of that on one place. So, don't tell me
But your fire assessment was $300.
Would be 356.
$356.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you're talking about the,
But the little Gulf View Motel at the corner of 15th Street was close to $3,000. And the little Castaways thing right here was close to $2,400. Your house was $350. Okay, next question.
that's not what I get.
I guess what I don't understand is we pay an expert to come in, which I thought was a great idea, but this is something brand new to us. I didn't mind spending that money. I thought we really needed advisement from somebody that deals in this continuously. Why are we having such a problem with what this expert came in and suggested that we do? I do have a problem with commercial not paying a lot more than residential. I own several properties in other areas. I have the commercial properties. I pay a lot more in fire assessment than my residential in the other areas. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that because I can recoup that money through my businesses. But I just don't understand that this person came in, and from what I've seen, from the meetings I came to, and she explained everything to us and all this, a lot of time, the work was put into this. Why are we now having such a problem? Is it just because commercial owners don't want to pay more
Well, the meetings I attended, many commercial people came to that podium and expressed concern about the amount of money that they were paying.
Yes, the commercial, I'm talking about.
That's right. Well, the homeowners did too. The homeowners did too, but to answer your question, we did go with what the lady said. We paid for that. One of the issues that I brought up was that why would a rental house, which is a business, be treated the same as someone that's just a resident? When there's 1,474 non-homesteaded properties, the data that lady presented was treating everything in our little community. 1,474 of them are non-homesteaded properties and have the potential to be nothing but businesses, rental businesses.
And I'm not saying the non-residential.
So we seem to want to forget, at least in her data, that we're treating them just as a residential house. Well, they could raise their rate $1 a day to pay for their assessment. $1 a day, that's what it would take to someone that rents their house.
Al, I
$1 a day.
think there's,
I'm not arguing with that.
Okay, but I'm just saying, when you talk commercial, we seem to be forgetting that I think you're referencing brick and mortar stores.
No, what you're saying is true. If it's a rental, yes, they can recoup their money. That's true. Couldn't you go and see who's paying their taxes and know?
No, you can't do that.
This amount.
No, you can't do that.
People, that fall in a different category than the residential.
You cannot do that.
Homesteads.
You can't gather that data.
There's no way for us to know what is a rental. It's
No,
protected.
All we know is if it's a homesteaded property, it has the potential to be a rental. That's all we can do. You can't gather data from anywhere and any source that'll tell you which are rental houses in the non-homesteaded category.
And they don't keep a record of who's paying their taxes?
No.
They do, but it's
They do,
protected.
but it's protected.
The state will not allow you to get that.
Correct.
Now,
So,
I would, unfortunately, we're never going to make everybody happy. We're just not. And I cannot see having commercial pay the same as a residential. There are 16% or 15% of our structures commercial versus 84 residential homes. And so, yes, I know some of the commercial have complained. Others haven't. They've paid without a problem. They say they don't like it, but it's part of that's just part of it, part of life. And so I don't think that we can forget the 84% residentials just to accommodate the 16% commercial so that we're all equal. I think commercial needs to pay more. I'm more concerned about the duplex that Rex was talking about. They're under one structure. And it's not like each structure is 2,700 square feet. And so why should they pay, just knock down the wall?
Well, yeah, and being fair, I didn't like it that I paid twice, but I understood it, and it was fine, and I did it. But if I told you I didn't have a problem with this first one, I'd be lying. I do have a problem. I thought, well, maybe we could take what percentage the commercial paid and divide it by 53, and they'd all pay $2,500 apiece. Some of them would be happy, and some would be mad.
I guess.
We could cover it that way, but I agree, Joy, we did pay somebody, it's tested, it's proven. She can't go around and figure out who's rental, we can't nitpick that. We have to do the best we can do. I thought she did a great job, professional, presented it. It wasn't like this was the first city she had gone to, so I didn't have a problem with the assessment. And when you talk about commercial people, if you figured up the occupancy rate of, it doesn't matter, the driftwood or whatever, and figure out how much per room they would have to add, per person, it probably wouldn't be more than $1 or $2 to cover whatever their rate was. If you add a 50 cents to a hamburger or 2 cents to a nail or whatever, you just do what you have to do.
I'm wondering if we've been in this assessment for a very short period of time. And since we will be doing this every year, I'm wondering if we should not keep what we have and spend the time 6 months before, starting in January, and do some more research and look at other options for the next year. We will have worked through this for 1 full year then, and then change. That's an option. Bill, I like your idea. If the commercial is paying different than the residential, I'm all for that.
I'm, again, from what short time we've had to look at it, from a fair standpoint, is not whether it's commercial or whether it's residential, but what would burn. If it's a 10-foot or 100 by 100-foot shack that I'm living in, then I would pay that if that's burned. If I was the owner of the Old Governor and have no earthly idea how many square feet that would be, then I'd pay on that. But I think some of what you say has merit. The one thing from the person that came in and gave us this presentation, they evidently did mention what we've kind of been looking at, this other two-tier type method and so forth. But what we didn't have a chance is to compare that method against the method. Both of them will stand up in court. And if we look at it, I'd like to look at it, both methods. Which method is going to serve our community better? Not which method is easier particularly do, but which method is going to serve you better? Which method can we talk to you about? And it's simple enough for me to understand and simple enough for me to be able to help any of my citizens to understand. And one that's going to treat all of us as fairly as possible, from whether it's a commercial customer or whether it's to me and you who are residential, or if you happen to own a rental property. So it may make sense.
Do we have time? Aren't we under a July 10th
Well,
deadline?
I think maybe what she has indicated is correct. Maybe we can go one more year. We know what it is. When I asked at the last meeting if we brought someone in to look at it, a professional, for whichever, whether they're professional or not, they did a great presentation. The money would come from that fund we're raising anyway. And if we do look at it from two perspectives, which is the best way to charge our community, it's going to be paid for not out of the general fund, but out of the fire fund. And if we're going to have someone come and look, I want to look at both sides, because frankly, I'm impressed with the one I looked up that other cities are doing over online versus the one we looked at and voted on. But we're right on the line. You're absolutely correct.
I'm willing to go with the expert's advice for this next year. And I've talked to different people. I've heard both sides. Probably the millage rate may be the fairest way to go overall, but man, it's a lick.
Mm-hmm.
So consequently, I agree with Joy. I'm ready to go with the expert. I mean, it's court tested and approved. It's the most widely adopted in the state.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's what they said.
I know.
And that, she was the expert.
But we've got a lot of people, evidently counties and cities, doing it this method. That's the reason I'd like to see both of us.
Well, yeah,
Both methods.
we may have people doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And we don't have the time
right
right
now.
now.
That's it.
To delve in and look at everything. That's a 2 or 3 month process to do that. And if we wanted to do that, then we need to start in January next year and
We
look
need
at these
to
things.
start before and start
Right.
looking at who would do the best job of comparing.
That's true.
Any other comments before we go back here?
Can we vote on option 1 or 2?
Not right
No,
now.
those aren't coming up. You want to make a motion?
There's a.
Do I?
There's a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Question.
Yeah.
Under your two options there and Bill's options, are the exemptions still in place?
Pardon me?
Exemptions.
Sure. You talking about homestead exemption? Sure.
Well,
No.
any exemptions.
They're discussing options that aren't even listed. The option that we currently use isn't even one of these that are up there.
I'm sorry?
The option we're currently using isn't one of these that are on the screen.
Right, I mean, with these options, if they adopt some variation of these options, will the exemptions still be in place for those
If you're
options?
talking like homestead, I'll answer for the one I
No.
have.
No,
No,
he's talking-
because
It's on
it's
about
on
other
property value, your house value, not on the
The,
whole
the question,
property.
the question he's asking is, will you still exempt those that have the senior rates and the
Oh.
disability
Oh,
rates?
yeah.
That would have to be figured into it.
So those include that? Those options include those?
Well, it's not into that right now. That's, you have to get deeper into that. We're looking at pure.
Those options, to clarify, what I presented, the numbers, the number of properties were given from taken from the property appraiser's office. They don't know what our exemptions are, so those numbers do not include, there would probably be as many as 20 or 30 properties that wouldn't
You
be.
figure your dollar amount to include those exemptions. Sure. It might go up a little bit depending on how many exemptions.
That's right, but that's not gonna be necessary. All right, so we'll entertain a motion. If there's no other discussion.
To move that we accept the procedure that we're under right now, continuing into the next year? How would I say that?
That's fine, I think everybody knows what that is.
I can make it pretty.
All right,
So you can make it pretty.
is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
No.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
All right, thank everyone for coming. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.